What's up, music teachers? Today, I have the pleasure of getting to show you my chat with Valerie White Williams. She is an online vocal coach who grew her music studio using her YouTube channel. As of filming this, she's almost at like 90K subscribers, so feel free to give her your support to her channel. But I titled this "Meet the Voice Teacher Who Escaped the Traditional Studio." So I want to talk first about like what is that trap? What is the big trap with the traditional music studio? So in college, I kept feeling stuck right when I had around like 15 or 20 students. And like, yes, I felt comfortable with a consistent roster of students, but was it worth, the late nights feeling burnt to a crisp? So I remember looking like everywhere in music teacher groups for a fix. They kept telling me like the same piece of advice that everyone else was telling me in the music lesson industry. I had to make more money by filling up my studio with 40 students a week, or hey, if your rates are too high, you won't get any students. But also, like, group lessons are less effective than private lessons. You can't charge as much. And when I kept following how I felt I should grow my piano studio, I just kept feeling either excitement when I got a new student, but dread knowing I had to sacrifice more of my practice time as well. Frustration because I had to settle at like a lower income just because I'm, capped. And also, I felt feeling ashamed. I couldn't enjoy my vacations or my school holidays without even sacrificing my income as well. So every time I made a plan to get to that next income level in my piano studio, all I could think of was like I had either had to spend hours managing teachers if I grew that way, or either that or keep my same schedule and teach tirelessly every week. And ultimately like settling for earning less income as well. And if you've been through the same experience, like, all the feeling, the feeling all too well. So in this training, we'll teach you about how Valerie transitioned from the traditional one-on-one studio to offering her online group vocal classes as well. She will also talk about how she strategically grew her channel to almost 90K subscribers while also standing out of the crowd. And then also how she grows her studio using her YouTube channel without needing to just rely on word of mouth. So I'm excited for you. I'll see you on the other side.
I like your idea about how we can be performers and actually also teach and make an income.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of people believe that if you're a performer, you never make any money. That's like this myth. It's like, oh, you can't make money. Musicians are poor. And of course, there are poor musicians that will take any gig and scrap around. But to create a income that's sustainable, I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. Where do you feel like you really like felt that shift of like it is possible to have both of those things?
Yeah, well, it really depends. I've lived in various locations. Right now, I'm in a
Mhm.
small town. It's a college town. It's a little bit rougher in this because it's a small town, and there's colleges, and they have students, and then there's like, but in the city, there's a bit more opportunity because there's more people.
Yeah. You're talking about how you wanted to move back to the city, right? Like
Yeah,
someday?
I do. I do. I don't want to move back to Seattle because Seattle's having some problems, but I do. I would like to be in a larger opportunity where there actually is more performances and more opportunities, and
Hmm.
online has been great too. Like I said, we talked this last time that I started teaching online, and so but now everybody's doing it. But I
Yeah.
think there's opportunity. It's just you kind of have to hustle and get the name out. So that's the thing. We have to use a lot of social media to
Hmm.
kind of grow things.
Yeah. So I guess for part of your story, what do you feel like are the biggest problems that you went through when you were trying to make a transition from like the old way that you're teaching to how you're doing things now, especially
Well,
with YouTube and everything that
exactly.
you've added?
I think that YouTube really was magic for me. And
Oh.
because when I started putting my videos on my website and then they started growing, that's when I first started getting clients.
Hmm.
And I think it's a new world when you can do video lessons through, this like portal like Zoom or Riverside, or I
Hmm.
even been using Facebook Messenger, you know,
Oh
so
yeah.
doing that. Yeah,
That
so
works too.
that works. And actually, it almost works better. You can't record though. And so that's the only drawback unless I use Loom. So I also use
Hmm.
Loom too. So I think that is a new world, and I'm looking to travel to visit a friend this in the next month, and I'm planning to just teach my clients online, so I
Oh,
don't have to like
nice.
lose income. I can still work with them online.
Yeah, yeah. And for just for some context, just to like kind of like a reminder for me, but also anyone that is watching, like how is your studio, how's your voice studio structured? Like who do you serve? How do you serve them?
Well, actually, I really serve a variety of people. I've worked from people that think they cannot sing, they're hopeless, to working with professionals that are working on. Usually, when I work with professionals, they're usually either recovering from an injury
Mm.
or they want to grow into a new skill set, but they don't want to do it at a gig. They want to
Oh.
get coached on it in private.
Hmm.
And but the other thing about those professional singers, they typically, once their problem is solved, they're done. They're
Oh,
just going to
okay.
come in and come out. And then I have beginners. They think, "Oh, I can never sing. I'll never make it." Or, and I actually show them. So I actually use solfege a lot. I don't know if you've
Hmm.
used solfege for.
Oh yeah, that's like music school and back in music school and every
Yeah,
my oral skills back then.
and we all had to do it when we were students. But I found that because some singers think they can't sing in tune. And of
Hmm.
course, Simon Cowell and reality TV has really shamed people that, oh, you can't sing, shut up, let the other people sing. But in truth, everybody can sing. It's
100%.
just a social concept at this time, because prior to the industrial world and music being as a sold product, everybody sang.
Hmm.
No one thought about it. And
Yeah, so
so,
how do you help like students make that shift of like seeing that they already have that ability
yeah,
to
so I
sing?
usually show them, like, they'll say, "Oh, I'm tone deaf."
Mm.
Well, the statistics, there's only a very small percentage of people, I think it's amusia, I may be saying it wrong, that really cannot really hear. But most people have been shamed. That's what I've seen, that most people have been shamed. And pitch, memory, and matching pitch is developmental. Some
Hmm.
people have amazing ears right at 3. Some people takes a while. For example, I had this student that her dad sang. She had a beautiful voice. The brother sang out of tune for a long time,
Uh-huh.
but they were patient with him. And then I lost contact with the family. And ironically, I was adjudicating in the school. And here was this boy who was like probably 15, 16, beautiful voice. Because the family didn't shame him and didn't say, "Oh, well, I guess you didn't get the singing gene."
Yeah.
And so the shaming is really what shuts people down. And then they're mocked and shamed. But I found that people like that, they just need to find the pitch. And I have some exercises that I do with people. And maybe I'll share it with you. This is one of my favorite exercises, because
We're
I
gonna do an
will,
exercise right now.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah. So just to kind of get them, so that I call it like, yes. And so they get that middle voice in their pitch, like you have good food, or you want to go play basketball, or you know, you want to, like, something you're so excited about. You're going, yes. And that energized voice is where we want to center the pitch around. And then after I have them do that, then I'll listen and I'll play, is this note higher or lower? I'll do the
Hmm.
higher or lower note. And
Yeah.
then I'll go, well, you're not tone deaf. You can tell if it's higher or lower. And just
Yeah.
kind of build them back into feeling it from themselves. The music isn't out there, it's in here.
Hmm.
And so I
Yeah, I
really
love
love
that.
working with those people, because then they finally go, wow, I can do this.
Yes, yes. I think it's super important. Like that's pretty much like the work that we do as teachers. It's like showing our students that like they already have what it takes to be a great musician. They just got to be able to find it. And I feel like a lot of that stems with a lot of teachers as well, where they like, especially when they are in that shift of like, okay, I need to start on that new chapter of my studio. I feel like I need to make the next big move, like there's a lot of courage that's needed with that as well. And a lot of teachers feel like they need more skills in
Yeah.
order to get to that next level. But a lot of us already have those skills. A lot of us have been teaching. Like every single teacher I talk to is I have such great respect for, because I get to work with amazing teachers and people that have been teaching for a while. So like for you, what was that process like when you were transitioning to YouTube and transitioning to more of like the online format? Like how'd you find your power in yourself to
Well,
make that happen?
I had been teaching earlier. I remember when I was a first teacher, I was so scared that I was going to screw anyone up. That was my first thing.
Oh.
Like, oh, I don't want to like make someone cry, or I don't want to screw them up. So that was my early, that was way back in the dark ages. When I started teaching online, it actually made more sense. And the thing about online is that we do have the mirror aspect. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know about you, but when I was teaching voice, or I was a voice student, I always had to look in the mirror the whole
Mm.
lesson. And it was torture because you'd like, oh, I have a zit or something, or I look stupid. And so that was always awkward. But with online lessons, we have that mirror effect automatically. And so
Mm-hmm.
people can see, like I say, okay, I'm going to do this. And people feel weird. I've had students that feel really weird just doing this. And what
Yeah,
I
just
say
leaving their
is,
mouth open.
yeah, have their mouth open, because there's social taboos about keeping your mouth open.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they see you, it feels normal. When you see a singer singing, their mouth is open. But
Yeah.
that's what's so great about the camera to camera, that you can feel it's okay to go. A lot of my students will sing and they'll go, ah, and then they say, what happened? Well, you close your mouth. And so this is a way with the camera can show you what you're doing. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
when we're actually filming it, you can go back and watch it. Now, a lot of
Yeah.
people think that they don't like to see themselves on camera, but you can learn a lot.
Yeah. So it's almost like you already got used to doing that for singing, that like
Mhm.
doing that for YouTube was just a natural thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Can you give some context on that too? Because like I think a lot of teachers they're thinking about like, oh, do I do YouTube? Do I do Instagram? Do I do Facebook? Um, like walk us through that process of like how you started with that, because I know we talked about you just using it just for your own students, but like or for your website too, right? Can you
Yeah.
walk through that progression of like how it's evolved and what you do now with the channel?
Well, I started actually just putting out some exercises or just talking about singing, and then I just put them out there. And so I actually have a whole bunch of new exercises I haven't filmed yet, but it's just kind of giving some people some exercises. That's what I call exercises, just to
Mm-hmm.
kind of give that feedback. And that's kind of how I started. I just started like, okay, here's this. And I still have some videos that I use to my students, and they're old, but I send them online and so they can watch them. So it's
Yeah.
really nice to be able to have that content and just say, hey, here's a video. I filmed it before, and you can watch it all the time. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think just like what, all the singers, when you first start singing and recording yourself,
Yeah.
and then you think, oh, is this me? Ooh, gross. That's horrible, right? Everybody thinks that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that the next step on the video, people will feel weird on camera. Like, oh, I look dumb. I look stupid. And then they get nervous because they feel like they look weird, or and so these are things you have to overcome,
Mm-hmm.
especially actually as a student, but also if you want to put content out, you just kind of have to, it's okay. And I'm a huge perfectionist, so I want to have
Yeah.
everything perfect, but I realize we'll never be perfect. And then sometimes when you're editing your video, you'll freeze frame and you just find the ugliest face. You just,
I know it's unfortunate.
you're like, do I look that bad? You know, And so you just kind of have to like work through it. it's just like another layer of, okay, yeah, that frozen picture at the moment will look pretty bad, but overall, we just have to do the best we can because that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And so that's what we've always done with music. It's like all these challenges that we face, like feeling nervous performing in front of an audience, like for the first time, like we're having those same feelings when we start putting ourselves out there online as well, just in a different kind of medium.
Yeah, it works so. And it's the wonderful thing about working online is that you can reach people from all over the world as long as the time
Yeah.
zone works for you. You can also, like I said, I'm planning to go to a trip, visit some friends and family, and I'm just planning. I have a little roll up keyboard, and I can just bring the music over there, and we can do it online. Even in my
Yeah.
in-person students, like, hey, I'm going to go on a trip. We'll still have lessons on your time zone, and I can still teach.
Yeah. So are most of the students coming from the YouTube channel? Like, do they go to your website or something?
Well,
How's
I do have
that work?
a website. Actually, my
Uh-huh.
website recently crashed and burned, and because I had to reset some of the domains. But
Uh-huh.
I do get people from my website, and I've had my my domain, which is vocalsplendor.com, for so many years. It still shows up in the search. So I do get
Nice.
search traffic. And then my YouTube channel sends people. And of course, my Instagram, and I'm on Linktree.
Uh-huh.
You have to hustle. I mean, when you're an independent voice teacher, you don't have a school or you have to fund yourself, and you have to like
Hmm.
hustle, as you know.
Yeah, 100%. And like for you going through that experience and just being able to see what's possible for your voice studio, what were some of like you face any challenges that you just like weren't expecting or something like that? Any surprises there along the way?
Well, there's like sometimes you're not sure what to do. I mean, sometimes we have to diagnose people,
Uh-huh.
and some people are hard nuts to crack. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I found students that have so much facial tension. It just came to me, and she was saying like this, and her mouth was like that. I was like, and she sounded pretty good, but there was like so much tension. And sometimes it's really hard for people to want to work through.
Mm.
So it really depends on the client. What I usually do is the first lesson, I usually interview people and just ask them, what's your favorite music? What's your experience? Do you play instruments? What kind of
Hmm.
music do you like? So I actually can fine tune, get them focused on what they want. Some people say, I don't know, I just want to sing. I don't
Yeah.
know. You know,
Yeah. So like doing the lesson in person versus now like online. Um, one of the things I always tell my teachers is that like, this helps us evolve as teachers, right? Like it's almost like we got to be a beginner teacher again. Um, for you, like how have you found it most effective to teach your students online still effectively, still have effective coaching, um, but be able to still give that great experience as you would like in person as well? How does like what
well,
have you found the nuances in the pedagogy there?
I feel that basically the only drawback is that the bandwidth doesn't always allow us to actually accompany our students. So that's
Mm.
probably the biggest challenge. Now, maybe that eventually is going to, because we have, different types of internet. And so that's probably the most challenging thing, because usually I will be able to accompany my students with a piano. Well, if it's contemporary music, and or play recordings, but they would have to record on their end. But other
Hmm.
than that, I think in some ways online is better, again, because we're seeing each other face to face, and we can see, so I can see what they're doing with their face. They can see what they're doing with their face. You have to look at the camera and see that. Usually, when I first start teaching about breathing, I'll have people stand up and we'll do some breathing exercises. But, it still works, you know,
Hmm.
and it's just learning to, because really, as voice teachers, we are bringing the voice out of them.
Mm.
So it's about bringing their voice out. And and getting the muscle memory. And what I tell my students, especially those that want to sing, but maybe I've had some students that have had some vocal recovery and
Hmm.
right now, who basically had some teachers that had her singing opera rep was completely not for her voice.
Mm.
Kind of screwed her up. And so we're doing some recovery work to put the voice back
Yep.
where it's easy.
Nice.
And so that's things that you can do and you can record. So I record, and then what's magic is when I do recording and I send, okay, listen to this. You're doing it right versus doing it wrong. And I don't like to say wrong, but she has a brighter voice, but she was talked into singing really big rep. And
Hmm.
so there's like a hole in the voice. I don't know if you ever had somebody like that,
Oh, no. You're the voice expert here.
And so we had to do some recovery work, And so what's great about working online is we
Hmm.
can record it, and then it's all about muscle memory. I tell students it's all about muscle memory. We're training little muscles. And I
Hmm.
tell people they're vocal athletes. I'm like, yeah, right. Well, they are. Singers are vocal athletes. We're just training little muscles, just like in the piano. With fingers, we're training little muscles. But with the piano, we can see what our fingers are doing. As
Yeah.
singers, everything that we're supposed to control, not really,
Yeah.
we can't feel. We can't feel the vocal cords stretching and going like this. We don't feel the energy in our breathing.
Hmm.
And
Do you
so,
find that it's making your students like more independent,
ah,
like with themselves, especially if you're not there to actually
right.
like move them around?
Exactly. And I don't touch my students anymore. I think that's like a old school thing. Like back in the
Mm.
day, the teachers would put their hands on your body. Did you? I mean, you had to do that too, right?
Yeah, because that's probably. I mean, I had to go through that for like voice methods and stuff like that too. Like a teacher
Yeah,
would be doing that to me.
yeah. And they touch you. I mean, so that was that era. They put
Oh, yeah,
touch your body. I mean, and they put hands on here, and you put your hands here. And now that's like taboo. You know,
yeah,
you don't really touch people, which
yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can touch yourself, but that was a thing that people would do. Now I can see the benefits of it. So, I had a teacher who taught me how to breathe more deeply, and he had
Yeah.
me put my hand on his rib, and he was an older teacher. He was probably in his 70s, and I did learn, but you can still teach that, and they can feel their own energetic, especially the breathing. Obviously, the vocal cords are a
Hmm.
little bit different, but it's all about training the muscles.
Yeah.
Singers are vocal athletes.
I guess on like that makes sense though, because on a pedagogical level, I know there's a lot of piano teachers or guitar teachers that are feeling the same way as well. It's like if I'm not there with the student, like being able to give them corrections, give them feedback without me being there, like how do you get around more of the mindset of that? Because I feel like every teacher that
Yes.
says that has the ability to be able to teach online, help their student be more independent with that without them needing to be there. But like the mindset shift of letting go of that control,
Yeah.
like how did you how do you deal with that? How did you
Well,
get through that?
I actually teach piano too, and I taught a lot of piano online during the COVID era.
Yeah.
And so, what I do with piano is so for singing, I like to do face to face because that's what we're working at, face to face. And then
Hmm.
if you need to stand up, we do breathing, we can do some of that. But with piano, I like to have a side view of camera.
Yeah, with the hands.
Yeah, I see their hands, so I'm feeling the hands like this, and I can see their hands on the keys. And that so it's a different side view, but it still works. And then when I work with students, if I want to do like a cross hand, then I have to set up a separate camera
Hmm.
and I'll show them usually down below, just like down like this. And so they can
Yeah, kind of
see,
like an overhead.
yeah, it's like an overhead. I mean, I wish I had
Yeah.
it on the up, continuously. I know
Uh-huh.
that some teachers have that, but I have another one that I just set up and then I just show them the crosshand.
Yeah.
And usually once they get it, I mean, it's just that student at that level, like, oh my gosh, this is so ooh, this is so scary. But once
Uh-huh.
they understand, they get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of like just making sure you just demonstrate it right. Is
Right.
that pretty much it?
Yeah. And
Nice.
they can hear it. I can hear them. And so, again, when I first started teaching piano,
Hmm.
I felt, and that actually what happened is that I lived in Seattle for a while, and then I moved to this town, and then I brought a lot of my piano students with me.
Hmm.
And it still works because they're on
Nice.
their own keyboard or their piano, but they still can get that because I can demonstrate and I can always correct them. And when I do that, I have their music in front of me and I can tell right away, that's the wrong note, or you didn't do this right. And I see their fingers,
Yeah.
and it works really well. And I think
How?
any instrument, whether it's guitar or violin or trumpet, it's all about working together with the camera. And that's the thing too, is that we're looking at, you have two views. You have your view of you and you have the view of the teacher. And
Hmm.
that is really powerful. And in some ways it's more powerful than being in the room because there's a lot of distractions in rooms.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. It sounds like you just had so much experience. Like you're very, very just used to it
Yeah.
now. So I guess like what's the bigger picture for you? Like what's next?
Well, I think it's time for me. I've been taking what I call a sabbatical on my YouTube because my life has been shifting around, but I'm going to get back. I still
Nice.
have, I think I have 750 videos on my vocal videos website. There's
Nice.
a lot of reactions. People talk me into the reaction videos, and they're fun. They're a little more high maintenance because
Uh-huh.
you have to deal with some of them. Well, what I say, sometimes you get, well, I only had a few blocks, but sometimes the monetization is hard to get
Oh,
through.
because you're playing like you
Yeah,
might have something like copyright or something like that on there.
right. So copyright, I
Gotcha.
know how to basically dispute it. So I always
Uh-huh.
will dispute, but then the copyright owners have the offer. They have the option to say nay, but
Uh-huh.
you can
Okay.
always you can always it's okay. So it's
Yeah. So what kind of content do you want to make? Like what's the future of it, of the channel?
well, I'm looking forward to getting back into the reaction videos because I have a lot of fan base and I know they
Uh-huh.
miss me. I've been gone probably for I think around in May, but I just needed
Uh-huh.
to take a break. And I've had
Yeah.
a break before. I did like a year and a half break way
Uh-huh.
back in the day, came back because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to film and I wish I had I know I'm a control freak and I don't really
Hmm.
like to like outsource and I've had problems with people screwing up my stuff. So
Yeah.
that's hard, but I would like to do more reaction videos at a pace that works for me and also film some of my new exercises. And what
Oh,
happens with
okay.
my new exercises, I usually develop them working with somebody and I'm like, wow, this is great. This is a
Uh-huh.
great way to think about it. And I also been working with people with their speaking voice because a lot of public speakers don't really understand that they want to have a voice that sounds like James Earl Jones or something like or or they're losing their voice when they speak. So I
Uh-huh.
always tell people that the speaking voice and the singing voice are two sides of the same coin. And so when I do
Yeah.
work with speakers, I always make them sing so they can feel the voice. The voice, I tell people with a car, if you're going on a large trip, your car does not need to rest. You don't have to rest your car. Our voice is a
Yeah.
machine. And if we're using our voice in an appropriate way, we shouldn't be tiring.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's I mean, I didn't even know that distinction right there, but I'm really glad that you also help like speakers as well because that is so important. Like to be able to help other people outside of just the music
Mhm.
education industry. I think that's super important.
Yeah. And
Anything
if,
else that you're working on with the studio, with the
well, the
voice
other thing
studio?
I want to do is, of course, like I have so many ideas, I can't even do everything because I would like to create like maybe like a small mini course, something super basic. And I
Oh,
usually had resisted that for so long because like I have
uh-huh.
to like see everybody and make sure they're doing it right, blah, 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 right?
Yep.
But I think it's time for me to get over myself, because that might be just the taste that person wanted to do. Just like something basic, like breathing
Hmm.
and posture and basic singing exercises, and something that's super simple. And then
Yeah.
later I'll see what I can do with them. And maybe, you know, getting into some group courses where the people are on the same page, because with online groups, you really need to group them in, like, okay, here's our beginners, or here's our people that want to learn how to belt, or here's people that want to sing jazz, things like that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of,
Is
if we're going to do group classes, we kind of, everybody's all over the map. It kind of needs to focus into sections of people, or maybe some older
yeah.
people that are older, like think, oh, I'm too old to sing, you know, but there can be camaraderie in that.
Yeah. So do you have like a thought process, or like how do you know what the next best direction for you is? How have you like done that in the past?
I, I I'm a person that has more ideas that I can actually do. So
Uh-huh.
that's the real issue. I wish I
So
had
kind of just like filtering out like
right. It's like,
what can be
what
done
is
later.
the most important thing I need to do next? But I
Uh-huh.
do feel like I should have had an online course years ago in singing. I was
Ooh.
just too much of a perfectionist, because I didn't want people to go through the course and do it all wrong. Because I've
Hmm.
heard people go through, oh, I'm going through this book, and they still sucked
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Well, I'm glad that you're thinking about it now. Sounds like the right time.
yeah. So that was a thing, because I think always singers need feedback, but
Hmm.
I think that it's just hard. So that's why it was hard for me to actually consider that. But
Yeah.
I think it's time.
Nice. Nice. So if you were like to think about to young Valerie, who is like just starting her voice studio, like what would you tell her? And of course, like for other teachers that are watching as well, like what advice would you give them
Yeah.
um, with them
Well,
growing their studios?
what I would say is that when I got out of school and I started teaching, I felt so insecure. I mean, and I think that, yes, you hadn't taught anybody. And I do come from a teaching family. My mom taught, my dad taught. So, but I felt I was really not ready to do it. But looking at my young Valerie, I would say, you know what? You went to school for 5 years. You've trained, you've sung on a very high level. And again, the thing about teaching voice is that you just have to jump in and do it, and you will learn as you go. And you know, I hopefully I never screwed anyone up as a young singer. When I first started teaching, I worked with a lot of rock and rollers, and I was like, I don't know if I say, you know, so I learned, but what I just listened to the person. I think that the biggest mistake is to think that everybody else is like you
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and you had the same experiences, but I've learned that that's not the case. Everybody is unique, and you can't expect that my experience in the voice program is like anyone else. Everyone has a different perspective, and you might even have the same teacher. Still, you might have a different perspective. So it's really about listening to the student. That's what I learned, is listen to the
Hmm.
student and find out what they need and what they want. And that could be completely different than what I started out in college.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I'm just looking back on like the flashbacks when I started teaching piano too, because that was like back in college when I first started. It was like when I was 18, just getting into college. I was like, if I'm gonna do a music ed degree, like I should just start getting experience. Like I'm not gonna learn how to teach through a
Right.
book. I'm gonna learn how to teach through experience. But I felt that, insecurity as well of like, and maybe rightfully so, because I didn't even start my degree yet. But I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know how I'm gonna teach these kids. How am I gonna do it? But I've always just gone with that mindset of like not being afraid to make the mistakes as well, and just going about it with learning. So I'm glad that you're able to share that with a lot of teachers as well, because even though we may be teaching, even though someone may be like a new teacher, or if they've been teaching for 20 years, like we all have those moments where we feel like a beginner teacher again.
And we're learning all the time. And you sometimes get somebody who comes into your studio and you're like, wow, I haven't dealt with this before, or I haven't,
Yeah.
so there's always new things. And you just have to it keeps you on your toes. That's what I like about teaching. It's never boring. You're always
Yeah.
learning. You're always in the moment, and it always goes so fast. And when I first started teaching piano, so I grew up, my mom taught me piano when I was 5. So I have no memory of even learning how to read music.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And so
Like I don't remember how. I just
right.
do.
And so and I'm not, I say I'm okay pianist, I always put my piano skills down because I was a voice major, but I have no memory. I've always been able to read music. And so having that experience and trying to teach other people how to read and how to learn and how to have your hands, there's a lot. But the thing
Yeah.
about music, both voice and piano, which I think I love the combination of both, because the voice is more physical, like sports. The piano is more logical. Obviously, we're training our fingers, but there's a lot of logic in that.
Yeah.
And it's a good
Awesome.
balance.
100%. 100%. Oh my God. I love everything we talked about for today. So I just want to say appreciate you, Valerie, for sharing your story, sharing all of that. Where's the best like place that people can find you? Is it the YouTube, the website?
Yeah,
Like how can people contact you, and if there's any teachers or singers that want to just talk to you and learn more?
I would love that. So my website is vocalsplendor.com, and it's spelled VOCALSPLENDOR.com. It's the American spelling. I've had that domain for many, many years. And
Is there
then,
another spelling?
yes,
Like
but
a
let's put a U in it.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, I learned that later.
Splendor.
Yes, exactly. So it's American spelling. And so that's my website. I also
Uh-huh.
have Vocal Splendor Studios, and I called it Vocal Splendor Studios because I used to teach in several locations. So I thought, hey, it's
Oh, okay.
cool. And so you can find me there as Vocal Splendor Studios.
Uh-huh.
And I'm also on Instagram, and I think it's under my name, but it also is Vocal Splendor. So I just use that
Yeah.
as my name. And you can find me under those hashtags and stuff.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll definitely be putting it around the video as well, just so it's super easy to contact you. But just want to say thanks so much.
Yeah,
Really appreciate you for coming on today because I know the holidays are coming up. So if anyone is listening, and any teachers listening, feel free to reach out to Valerie. Feel free to reach out to me. You can go on socialmediamusicteacher.com if you're looking to really scale your studio without having to teach like 40 students every single week as well. So otherwise, we'll see you in a future episode.
awesome. This was fun.
Yeah.